I'm gonna say this for the millionth time. Mike Mentzer was a complete fraud, and his heavy-duty training philosophy is complete nonsense. Low-volume training is one of the biggest scams in the fitness industry, and what he actually did to build his physique was the exact opposite of what he taught you later in life. Today, I'm going to expose why his training philosophy keeps you weak, destroys your recovery, leaves you looking like every other gym bro following influencer nonsense, and I'm gonna shed some light on a better training philosophy that is more inspired by the old school principles that actually built the golden and silver era physiques and actually works for guys with normal genetics like you and me. I guarantee that if you follow the pre-gear era principles that actually built these legendary physiques, you will never want to do this low volume nonsense ever again. So let's get right to it. I want you to look at Mike Mentzer's actual training journals from the 1970s. He was doing high volume training with multiple sets and frequent sessions throughout the week, actually training each muscle group with high volume and not just testing his strength with low volume. Even Franco Colombo, who was a very famous bodybuilder at the time, went into the gym that Mike and his brother would train in, which was normally locked while they sat in there and played classical music and supposedly did heavy duty training. And Franco himself said that they were doing high volume. They were not doing this one set, two set to failure nonsense. But everything changed when he failed in his bodybuilding career. He no longer had the grace of the Weeder brothers, and he started working for Nautilus and Arthur Jones, an equipment company, a gym equipment company, and suddenly he's preaching this one set to failure stuff because it is much easier to sell 15-minute machine bogus workouts to white-collar Americans who go to these gyms full of $10,000, $15,000 pieces of equipment. Nautilus machine. He used this as a way to make money off of hundreds of thousands of people, millions probably at this point in Instagram and YouTube history, selling lazy people the dream of these short little, easy workouts because it's easy to go to failure. Anybody can do reps until they can't do them anymore. It's the same playbook that Paul Saladino, Liver King, all those people do with pushing the meat and fruit organ supplement nonsense. They're not willing to talk about what actually works because what actually works doesn't sell as easily. If you are a natural with normal genetics, you cannot, I emphasize cannot, develop a impressive physique by doing the minimal amount of work. Now, I still only train for like an hour at a time. I am not telling you to do 3-hour marathon session, but I am telling you, you actually need to put in the work, put in the volume to grow muscle. We know this for a fact. It is what every single one of the old school era lifters did before gear was a thing and back when bodybuilders that we all know and love we're not using nearly as much gear as the guys today. And the guys today who almost exclusively just rely upon gear and not really their training, bodybuilding has shifted from being more of a usage culture than a training culture as it used to be. And the guys that you see on Instagram, so-called growing from low volume workouts, they're either genetic freaks who would grow even if they just sniffed the dumbbell. We all know those guys from when we went to school. They had 6 packs despite eating Oreos all day, or they are blasting. And I repeat, blasting gear. And as a result, they will grow from literally anything, whether it be subpar low volume training or higher volume training. We know from the studies that, folks who use these substances will grow without even training. So if you are like me and you are natural, you were born with piss poor genetics, I promise you from experience, from myself, my clients, everybody that I've talked to, if you do this low volume training and you are not genetically blessed or enhanced, you will be undertrained, overtrained from a nervous system perspective because all you're doing is just maxing out all the time. You will have stalled progress and had the exact same PRs for months and years on end. And as a result, you will look exactly the same year over year. This is because low volume training is like basically just only taking the exam in a class or in school and never actually studying for the exam by just doing a couple sets to failure for each muscle group. One, the failure is going to cause massive systemic stress. Your CNS just gets fried, your cortisol spikes, testosterone crashes, but at the same time, you're not developing work capacity. You are not developing the ability to do more work in less time. And now there is an awful program out there called German volume training. I don't recommend any of you do that, but that is based upon a German study that found that he who does more work, more tonnage in less time, volume with a time constraint across a certain amount of sets with shorter rest periods, whoever could do more in that span of time grew the most in terms of muscle strength, everything. There is a huge difference between productive fatigue that actually stimulates your growth and destructive fatigue that just destroys your gains. And the modern fitness industry has this flipped on its head. They call high volume training, where you're not going to failure all the time, they call that junk volume rather than actually being proper training where you get to focus on the mind-muscle connection, power output for heavier movements and speed, because force equals mass times acceleration. And instead, they say that the only way to gain muscle and build strength is to fry your CNS only with maximal sets. Sub-maximal work that is not done to failure is the bread and butter of both strength athletes whose job it is to get stronger and of old school pre-gear era bodybuilders. Doing many sub-maximal sets within a short period of time because you're able to use lower rest periods. This does not lead to long workouts. Again, I only train for about 60 minutes at a time. But the average person who buys this Mike Mentzer dream, they think that by training only 2 to 3 times per week for, 30 minutes, maybe even slightly less, they think that's actually going to lead to having a top tier physique. But you have to ask yourself, if you are really trying to only train 2, 3, 4 times per week for only 15, 30 minutes, you don't actually enjoy training, which you are supposed to enjoy training if your testosterone is high enough. You're supposed to enjoy effort and status elevation. We know this from tons of studies on testosterone and status. And if you find yourself trying to stay out of the gym for, most of the week, you probably just have a fried dopamine system, partially from training a failure, but also because of lifestyle choices, diet, other stuff that we'll touch on in a later video. But this lazy mindset is 1, indicative of low testosterone, but 2, doesn't just hurt your physique, it bleeds into everything. Business, relationships, every single part of your life, you will find yourself trying to do the least amount of work possible. When in reality, the optimal amount of work is not that hard, but because you keep shying away from that optimal amount of hard work, you end up going nowhere. And that is the worst end result that you can get in any part of your life. Making zero progress despite putting in cumulative hours and hours and hours each and every month. You need to understand that the average influencer that you see on these apps, on YouTube, on Instagram, or even back in the day during Mike Mentzer's magazine and, mail order workout era, they are either on gear, or they are genetically blessed, or both of these people are usually unemployed to the point where they can still remain shredded and lean on low volume training because they have hours a day to walk 10, 20, 30,000 steps. And they have the nerve to look you in the eye despite being either genetically blessed, unemployed, or on enhancements, give you a workout for 30 minutes in the gym, and then look you with a straight face, dead in the eyes, and say, hey, make sure you go and walk for 2 hours today on top of your workout and your desk job. If you actually want to build muscle and get lean at the same time, you actually have to put in the work in the gym and actually get training done, get work done. The physical principle of work capacity, the amount of tonnage that you are moving. You have to get that done within your 45, 60-minute gym session. The best way to do that, in my opinion, is cluster training, where you take a weight, let's say that you could do for 10, 12 reps and do, powerful sets of 3, 4, 5 reps with shorter rest periods. And then for accessory lifts, maybe taking a weight that you could do for 20 reps and doing very focused mind-muscle connection sets of, let's say, 12 reps, again, with short rest periods. This is how tons of the pre-gear era greats trained. And if you want to learn the exact method that I use for building my strength with cluster training to gain real size and strength without destroying your recovery and spending years looking exactly the same method that helped me build my physique while sitting at a desk all day working in private equity with zero cardio, click the first link in the description below. So let's talk about volume and cluster training, which will actually work for you, not this low volume nonsense. I'll give you a rudimentary example that you can go try out on some of your main lifts. Instead of using the same weight that you would use for, let's say, 3 to 4 sets of 10 to absolute failure, you instead do, let's say, 8 sets of 5. You double those sets and half those reps. And if you compare those two groups of, let's say, 40 total reps, if you were to record all of the cluster reps, each and every one of them is more powerful, faster, allows you to get a peak muscle contraction that you simply can't get when you're eking out the last rep of some set of 10. combined with shorter rest periods and doing this type of lower rep clusters for the main lifts. This builds genuine work capacity. It stacks up that volume in a constrained period of time without burning out your central nervous system, allowing you to recover faster and develop neurological adaptation, which we are required to develop in order to gain strength, rather than just doing these jugular busting sets to failure, because none of the pre-gear era greats trained that way. They trained high volume with sub-maximal intensity. And as a result, they still reached maximal intensity as it is known today, or failure, because they were doing a ton of these sets, again, within a constrained time period. 5 sessions a week, 60 minutes each, where you're actually moving and you're not just twiddling your thumbs for 3-minute rest periods. This will lead to stimulating and not annihilating, as a lot of the old school bodybuilders used to refer to this type of training as. I hit my upper body with a bro split approach because the upper body muscles take a longer time to recover, but the legs, which are designed to carry us every single day of every single week, they can get stimulated more often. I'll take my squat, my deadlifts, I'll do them more infrequently, and then I'll spread my accessories, my leg accessories, throughout the week so that I can stimulate the legs, which contain most of the muscle cells in your body, and as a result, most of the mitochondria in your body. And when you are taking the legs and telling them to produce more ATP within your mitochondria, and doing that more often, you burn more fat and you gain more muscle. Do you really think that Michael Phelps would have needed 10,000 calories a day if he was only training his legs once or twice a week? No. But you can get this done in the gym while hitting PRs, feeling strong. But unfortunately, the low volume bros simply try to get this done by doing Stairmaster, by doing treadmill, by doing, low intensity cardio. You can get the same thing done without sitting on a hamster wheel, by actually doing it in the gym with the weights. That is what all of the pre-gear era guys did. None of them used treadmills. Treadmills were a prison torture device that was not used in gyms up until the Globo Gym era, when they got all the brookies and the masses into the gyms. And this is exactly how I get guys with extremely normal genetics like myself, or subpar genetics more like myself, to continuously stay shredded, get even leaner, and gain more muscle while still sitting at a desk all day and getting basically 0 steps. Because again, most of these influencers are unemployed and have time to walk around all day. And they think that you do too. Another unfortunate offspring of the low volume, modern type of training that you see on the internet is unfortunately the push-pull legs or David Lade type split. Again, these splits are designed for gearheads or for genetically blessed individuals with unlimited time to sit in there and do their push-pull legs every single 3-day cycle. The bro split allows you to do this higher level of volume and actually recover. And when combined with a set and rep parameter that actually allows you to condition the body while also gaining size and strength, no cardio is required, no step counting is required, no macro tracking, calorie counting nonsense. Combine this with, instead of focusing on powerlifting, focusing on street lifting. You'll notice that there are these Russian guys that can do 450-pound dips. The average guy, even if you can't do a single dip or chin-up right now, is literally months away from putting on head-turning weight onto a dip belt. Literally anybody, even again, people that I have coached that have not even been able to do a single body weight rep, they are literally within striking distance of being able to do 100+ pound chin-ups, 100+ pound weighted dips. And when you combine this with a 0-carb carnivore way of eating, not the animal-based fruit plus meat nonsense that you see on the internet, you not only remove all inflammation that is also impeding your recovery from plants, from carbs, other sources, but you get into a state of deep ketosis that allows you to have this constant 24/7 focus, unlike the gearhead unemployed bodybuilders who do this type of low volume failure training, which leaves your CNS fried and your brain feeling foggy the rest of the day. The goal of all of this is to get your metabolism elevated by manipulating the diet, manipulating the training in a way that doesn't require soul-crushing cardio or hamster wheel running, which as a result destroys your testosterone. But again, the key difference between guys who build impressive physique and those who are stuck following these influencer trends is understanding that there are no shortcuts for natural lifters. Mike Mentzer once again built his physique with high volume training in the 70s, then sold you low volume garbage to make money off of Nautilus machines. I am telling you the truth based on my own transformation and for everybody that I have helped with. These properly done higher volume training principles, which built all of the legendary physique that you know and love from the pre-gear era, were also combined with a low-carb, very high-fat diet, which all marries together perfectly to allow you to recover and build muscle naturally while getting shredded. If you want my complete training and diet system, the method that builds strength and muscle without doing any type of cardio, any type of step counting, any type of macro counting, calorie counting, while eating until you're full like a king at the best restaurants in the world, click the link below, and I will see you in the next one.